The real problem is not the challenge itself, but our mental resistance to it. This is a truth many people overlook, because when difficulties arise in life, the first instinct of the mind is to label them as unbearable, unfair, or impossible. The human mind thrives on resistance. It tells stories like, "This should not be happening," or "I cannot handle this." And it repeats those stories until they feel heavier than the situation itself. If you observe closely, you will see that the pain of a challenge does not come only from the facts of the situation, but from the layers of thought surrounding it. For example, losing a job is one fact, but the suffering multiplies when the mind adds, "I will never find another," or "My life is ruined." It is this inner resistance, this refusal to allow what is, that becomes the true burden. When we accept this truth, a shift begins to happen. Resistance creates inner tension, like pushing against a wall that will not move. The wall is the external challenge, but the suffering is in the pushing. The wall itself is neutral, it simply exists. Yet the mind insists it should not exist. That should not is resistance. The paradox is that the more we resist, the more we suffer. But the moment we release resistance, we begin to feel a sense of spaciousness, even before the external situation changes. The challenge may remain, but without the story of resistance, it no longer defines our inner state. Consider a storm. If you stand outside shaking your fists at the rain, demanding that the storm end, you only exhaust yourself. The storm does not care about your resistance, it will run its course. But if you accept the storm, take shelter, and allow it to pass, you remain at peace even as it rages. Life's challenges are like storms. They arise, they unfold, and they eventually pass. Our resistance is the futile struggle against their existence. The true strength is not in stopping the storm, but in aligning with reality as it is, moment by moment. Presence becomes the key. To be present is to step out of the mental story about the challenge and into the simplicity of now. In this very moment, ask yourself, what is the problem right now? Not in the imagined future, not in the mind's fearful projections. But here, you may find that in this moment, the problem is only a thought. Right now, you are breathing. Right now, you are alive. The mind insists that the future will be unbearable, but the present is always bearable. Resistance lives in the future or the past. Presence lives only here. When we stop resisting, the challenge no longer feels like a personal enemy. It becomes part of the fabric of life, an invitation to deepen awareness. We begin to see that challenges are not punishments, but opportunities to awaken. Each challenge shows us how tightly we cling to control and how deeply we identify with the mind's fearful narrative. When resistance drops, what arises is clarity. From clarity comes action, not desperate, fear-driven action, but calm, intelligent action. In this way, even the most difficult situations can be met with a quiet strength. The truth is, challenges will always appear. Life is not designed to give us a perfectly smooth path, but the suffering we add through resistance is optional. By learning to observe the mind's resistance, and by stepping into presence, we discover that we are larger than any problem. The problem may exist, but it does not own us. We are the awareness in which both the problem and the solution unfold, and in that awareness, we find a freedom that no challenge can ever take away. Presence dissolves the weight of problems. This simple, yet profound truth is often overlooked because the human mind has been conditioned to believe that problems are solved by more thinking, more worrying, and more projecting into the future. Yet, when you watch closely, you begin to notice that the more you think about your problem, the heavier it feels. Worry magnifies it. Fear makes it appear larger than it truly is. The mind feeds on constant activity, creating stories that transform a single issue into an endless cycle of suffering. But when you step into presence, when you bring your full awareness to the here and now, the weight begins to lift. The problem remains, but it no longer carries the same oppressive force. Presence creates space between you and the issue, space in which peace can be found even while circumstances are unresolved. In presence, the mind loses its grip. Problems exist primarily in psychological time, meaning in the past that you keep replaying or the future that you anxiously anticipate. For example, you may have received a medical diagnosis, and immediately the mind begins to travel into imagined futures. What if I cannot recover? What if I lose everything? Each thought adds another layer of weight. Yet if you stay present, if you return to this moment, you discover that right now you are simply breathing. Right now you are alive. Right now there is no catastrophic outcome happening. Only the mind projecting one. Presence breaks this illusion, dissolving the heavy story the mind has built. The reason presence dissolves the weight of problems is because it takes away resistance. Resistance is the inner voice that says, "This should not be happening," and that voice creates friction. Imagine carrying a bag of stones. Each thought of resistance is another stone added to the bag. Soon you feel crushed by the weight, not because the bag is impossible to carry, but because of all the unnecessary stones you have added. Presence is like opening the bag and dropping those extra stones. The situation may still require attention, but you are no longer exhausted by the mental load. What remains is manageable, lightened by acceptance. Presence also connects you to a deeper intelligence than the restless mind. When you are present, you tap into the stillness beneath thought, and from that stillness clarity emerges. Many of the world's greatest insights come not from frantic problem solving, but from moments of still awareness. It is often when the mind finally pauses that the right idea, the right action, or the right perspective appears. This is not coincidence. It is the natural unfolding of intelligence that arises when the weight of problems dissolves in presence. Another way to see this is to compare presence to light. In a dark room, even a small object can cast a frightening shadow that looks larger than it is. But when you turn on the light, the shadow disappears, and you see the object clearly for what it is. In the same way, problems in the mind's darkness appear overwhelming, exaggerated, unmanageable. Presence shines the light of awareness, revealing the problem in its true size. Most of the time, what looked like a mountain is only a stone. What felt unbearable is, in truth, something you can carry with grace. This is not to deny the reality of difficulties. Challenges are part of the human experience, and they often require practical solutions. But presence ensures that you approach them without the added burden of fear, worry, and resistance. It allows you to act from a place of inner calm rather than inner turmoil. Presence doesn't make problems magically disappear, but it transforms your relationship with them so that they no longer weigh down your spirit. In presence, you realize that no problem can ever be greater than the awareness that perceives it. Ultimately, the invitation is simple. Whenever you feel weighed down, pause and return to now. Breathe. Feel the aliveness in your body. Look around without judgment. In that state of presence, notice how the problem no longer suffocates you. You are here, and here you are free. Presence does not solve everything at once, but it dissolves the unnecessary heaviness, leaving you with clarity, peace, and the strength to move forward. And in that freedom, you discover that the weight was never the problem. It was the absence of presence. Problems exist more in thought than in reality. If you pause and look closely at your experience, you will notice that most of the problems you carry are not happening right now in front of you. They are happening in your mind as projections into the future or as replays of the past. The mind constantly creates scenarios. What might go wrong? What could have been done differently? What others may think? And then convinces you that these scenarios are as real as the present moment. But the truth is, in this moment, most of those problems do not exist. They are mental constructs sustained by thought and imagination. The mind treats these imagined futures and remembered pasts as reality, and as a result, you feel the emotional weight of something that is not actually here. Think of a common worry: financial insecurity. Perhaps you have bills to pay or uncertainty about your job. The mind immediately creates images of a future where you lose everything, where you cannot cope, where life spirals downward. Your body responds with stress, fear, and tension as though those imagined events were happening now. But are they happening now? In this moment? Perhaps you are sitting in a chair, breathing with a roof still over your head. The actual problem in the present is manageable, maybe a bill to pay, maybe a call to make, but the vast drama of disaster exists only in thought. The suffering you feel is not from the reality of now, but from the mind story about what may come. This pattern repeats in many areas of life. Relationships are another example. A friend forgets to return your call, and immediately the mind spins stories. They must be angry with me, or maybe they no longer care about me. These thoughts become problems, generating anxiety and insecurity. Yet in reality, what has happened? A call was not returned. That is all. The problem is not the reality, but the interpretation created by thought. Once you see this clearly, a great burden lifts. Reality is often neutral and simple. It is the mind that complicates it with unnecessary layers. The mind's habit of turning thought into reality is deeply ingrained. It is a survival mechanism, evolved to anticipate danger and plan for the future. But in modern life, this mechanism often works against us. Instead of helping us survive, it keeps us trapped in constant states of worry and regret. The body cannot tell the difference between an actual threat and an imagined one, so it reacts with stress hormones, tightening muscles, and restless energy. You live as though under attack, yet the attack exists only in thought. The irony is that most of what you fear never actually happens, and much of what you regret cannot be undone. Still, the mind insists on replaying these scenarios, keeping problems alive long after they could have dissolved. Presence is the antidote. When you bring your awareness back to the present moment, the mind's grip loosens. You begin to see clearly that right now, in this very instant, most of the problems you carry are absent. Right now, you can breathe. Right now, there may be no immediate crisis. This does not mean ignoring real responsibilities, but it does mean refusing to carry the heavy baggage of imagined ones. When you meet life moment by moment, you deal only with what is real, not with the endless shadows of thought. This realization transforms your relationship with challenges. Instead of being crushed by the weight of imagined futures, you learn to respond to what is actually before you. The energy once wasted on worry becomes available for constructive action. You act more wisely because your perception is not clouded by fear. Problems lose their exaggerated form and reveal themselves as manageable situations, often far smaller than the mind had painted. In essence, problems are not as real as they appear. They live more in thought than in the world around you. Once you recognize this, you begin to live with a new lightness. Life becomes simpler because you carry only what is here, not the endless stories of what might be. And in this simplicity you discover freedom, the freedom to be fully alive in this moment, untouched by the imagined weight of problems that exist only in the mind. Stillness creates clarity and right action. This truth often reveals itself in moments when we step back from the noise of our own minds and the chaos of the world. Most of the time, the human mind is restless, filled with thoughts racing from one concern to another, building scenarios, judgments, and fears. In this mental turbulence, clarity is hidden. It is like trying to see your reflection in water that has been violently stirred. Everything appears distorted, and no insight can emerge. Yet when the water grows still, the reflection becomes clear. In the same way, when we cultivate inner stillness, we allow clarity to arise naturally, and from that clarity, the right action becomes evident without effort or strain. Stillness does not mean the absence of challenges. It does not mean sitting idle while life unfolds. Rather, it means meeting the present moment without inner resistance. It means quieting the restless commentary of the mind so that we can perceive reality as it is, not as our fears or desires distort it. When we stop being consumed by mental noise, we create space within ourselves. This space is where wisdom resides. Unlike thought, which is reactive and repetitive, wisdom arises out of stillness, an intuitive knowing that does not depend on endless mental analysis. Consider how often poor decisions are made in the heat of agitation or fear. A person might speak words they regret in anger, or rush into choices driven by panic rather than patience. These actions come not from clarity but from restlessness. The mind believes urgency is necessary, that problems must be solved immediately, yet often this urgency clouds judgment. Stillness, on the other hand, slows the pace of reaction. It allows us to wait, to breathe, and to see more deeply into the situation. In that pause, clarity appears, showing us what is essential and what is unnecessary. The action that follows is not reactive but responsive, aligned with reality rather than the mind's distortion. Think of nature as an example. A tree does not rush to grow, nor does the river hurry to reach the ocean. They unfold in harmony with their nature, guided by an intelligence far deeper than human thought. In stillness, we reconnect with that same intelligence. We no longer need to force solutions. Instead, the right action arises organically, like a flower opening in the morning sun. This does not mean passivity. It means a kind of effortless action. Action that flows from alignment with the present moment rather than struggle against it. Stillness also creates clarity because it reveals the difference between problems created by thought and the reality of the present. In the noise of the mind, everything feels urgent, critical, and overwhelming. But when we rest in stillness, we see that many of these supposed problems are only imagined. They dissolve in awareness, leaving behind only what truly requires attention. This filtering process happens naturally in stillness. The irrelevant fades away, and what matters stands out clearly. From this state, decisions are made with ease, not because they are forced, but because they are obvious. The right action that arises from stillness often carries a quality of simplicity. It is rarely dramatic or complicated. It may be as simple as making one phone call, saying one kind word, or taking one small step forward. Yet because it comes from clarity, it has great power. Unlike frantic actions that create further complications, actions born of stillness bring resolution and peace. They are effective because they are rooted in the deeper intelligence of presence, not in the restless fear of the mind. Ultimately, stillness is not something we create, it is already within us, beneath the surface noise of thought. To access it, we need only pause, breathe, and allow the mind to settle. Even a moment of stillness can illuminate a path that endless thinking cannot. In that stillness, clarity shines, and with it comes the right action. Action that is peaceful, wise, and aligned with life itself. Challenges are invitations to awaken, At first glance, this may seem difficult to accept because most people view challenges as interruptions to life, as obstacles standing in the way of happiness and peace. When something difficult arises, a loss, a failure, a conflict, the natural tendency of the mind is to resist, complain, and wish it away. Yet beneath the surface of every hardship lies a hidden opportunity, the chance to awaken to a deeper dimension of who we are, beyond the stories and identities of the mind. Challenges serve as reminders that life is not always under our control and that clinging to certainty and comfort is an illusion. They push us out of our habitual ways of living and invite us to discover a strength and awareness that would otherwise remain dormant. When life is smooth and comfortable, we often drift into unconsciousness. We live on autopilot, repeating the same patterns, distracted by surface concerns, not questioning the deeper meaning of existence. Comfort rarely forces us to grow. But when a challenge comes, an illness, a broken relationship, a financial struggle, we can no longer rely on autopilot. The mind begins to resist and panic, but if we look deeper, we see that the very discomfort is calling us to wake up. It asks us to step out of identification with thought and to recognize the awareness within us that remains untouched by circumstances. Without challenges, many would never begin this journey of awakening. Challenges reveal to us where we are attached. They show us the places in life where we have unconsciously built our identity, whether it is in status, possessions, relationships, or the idea of how life should be. When these attachments are threatened or removed, the pain we feel is not just from the event itself, but from the crumbling of the identity we built around it. This pain, while uncomfortable, is also a doorway. It exposes the fragility of the structures we thought would bring us lasting fulfillment, and it invites us to seek something deeper, something not dependent on circumstances. That deeper reality is presence, the timeless awareness that is the essence of who we are. In this way, challenges are not punishments, but teachers. They strip away illusions and false securities, pointing us back to what is real. A person who loses their job may discover that their worth was never truly tied to a title or salary. Someone who experiences illness may realize that life's value is not measured in productivity, but in being. A person who goes through heartbreak may awaken to the truth that love cannot be lost, because its source is not outside, but within. Without the challenge, these insights might never have surfaced. It is important to recognize that awakening through challenges does not mean denying pain or pretending difficulties are pleasant. Awakening means meeting pain consciously, without resistance, without being consumed by the mind's stories about it. It means allowing the challenge to be what it is, while staying rooted in presence. When you do this, something remarkable happens. The challenge may remain on the surface, but inwardly you begin to experience freedom. You realize that peace is not the absence of problems, but the ability to remain present amidst them. Every challenge, therefore, can be seen as an invitation to deepen awareness. You can either resist it and become more entangled in suffering, or you can accept the invitation and grow in consciousness. Life continuously offers these opportunities, not to break you, but to awaken you. And when you accept them, even the hardest moments become sacred because they connect you with the timeless essence of your being. Challenges, then, are not barriers to life. They are life itself, disguised as teachers, inviting you to awaken to who you truly are. You are not the problem, but the awareness beyond it. This realization changes the way you relate to difficulties, to your thoughts, and even to yourself. Most people live as though they are fused with their problems. When something challenging arises, the mind immediately says, "This is me. This defines me." My life is a problem. In that identification, suffering grows heavier, because not only is there the difficulty itself, but there is also the weight of believing that you are the difficulty. Yet if you look deeper, you begin to see that problems come and go, circumstances shift, and thoughts change, but something remains constant, the awareness that notices it all. That awareness is who you truly are. The problem appears within it, but you are not reduced to the problem itself. Take a simple example. Imagine a cloud passing through the sky. The cloud may be dark, heavy, and stormy, but it does not change the sky. The sky remains vast and open, allowing the cloud to pass. In the same way, problems are like passing clouds. They can feel overwhelming, but you are the sky, not the cloud. You are the awareness in which problems arise, linger, and eventually dissolve. The trouble begins when you forget your sky, like nature, and identify with the cloud. You say, "I am the storm," instead of realizing, "I am the space in which the storm appears." This distinction becomes clear when you practice presence. If you close your eyes for a moment and observe your thoughts, you will notice that they come and go. A worry about the future may appear, then fade. A memory from the past may surface, then disappear. These thoughts feel real while they are present, but they do not last. What remains throughout is the awareness that notices them. That awareness is not touched by the content of the thought. A painful thought does not stain it, just as a storm cloud does not damage the sky. When you recognize yourself as that awareness, you no longer collapse into every problem your mind creates. This is not to deny that problems exist in practical life. Bills may need to be paid, relationships may need attention, health may require care, but even these challenges are experienced differently when you no longer identify with them. Instead of saying, "I am the problem," you see, "A problem is arising in my experience." That simple shift creates space. In that space, the problem loses its power to consume you. You can meet it with clarity, because your sense of self is no longer entangled with it. The problem becomes something to address, not something that defines your being. Many people spend their lives trapped in identification with problems, carrying them as though they were personal failures. They say, "I am broken, I am not enough, I am my suffering." Yet all of these are thoughts appearing within awareness. You are not broken, you are the awareness that notices the thought of being broken. You are not unworthy, you are the awareness that perceives the story of unworthiness. This is the key to freedom. The recognition that awareness itself is untouched, no matter what thoughts or challenges arise within it. When you live from this recognition, you approach life with lightness. Challenges still come, but they no longer drown you. Pain may still be felt, but suffering is lessened, because you do not confuse yourself with the pain. You know that who you truly are cannot be diminished by circumstances. Problems may come and go, but awareness remains steady, like the sky holding every possible weather. To awaken to this truth is to discover a peace that no problem can take away. Because you are not the problem, you are the awareness beyond it.